let's get started. So, applying to nursing programs. First thing I want to do is let's go over the basics of getting into the profession. Actually, sorry, first thing, let's go over what workshops we have for the rest of the quarter. So we do have the Graduate Law Professional School Fair coming up in November, as well as the UCR School of Medicine Early Assurance Program info session. If any of you are also interested in medicine as well as a career. We also have one more interviewing workshop November 9th and one more introduction to health professions workshop on November 16th. So if you're interested in any of those, please make sure to check them out. We post most of the info for like workshops like this on our Instagram and also our website. So those are probably the best places to find that info. Anyway, so how do you become a nurse? So generally speaking, I want to go over the steps that you need to take. One is you most likely need to take the necessary prerequisite courses for a nursing program. And probably the TEAS, which is a entrance exam for a lot of nursing programs. I believe it stands for the Test of Essential Academic Skills. We'll go a little bit more into the TEAS later, but just know that that is the general admissions test for a lot of nursing programs. Next is to apply to a nursing program and try to get into one. And through that program, you can either earn an associate's degree in nursing, a bachelor's of science in nursing, or even an entry-level master's in nursing. These are all different degree options that would allow you to be able to sit for and take the NCLEX exam, which is the licensure exam to become a registered nurse, which is the next step would be to actually, after you graduate, take and pass the NCLEX exam. That's the thing that actually licenses you to be able to practice as a nurse. Really, a lot of the program you're doing is preparation to be able to do that test. And then the last one is to actually receive your licensure from the state in which you want to work and start working. I won't go too much into licensures, but just be aware that for the most part, licensure is by state. So when you become a registered nurse, you're licensed to practice in California. It gets a little weird when we're talking about other states. Some states have agreements with other states where if you have a license in Georgia, you can also work in Alabama or something like that. But generally speaking, California doesn't accept other licensures from other states. If you do want to practice in California, you need to sit for the NCLEX exam and take it in California and be licensed to practice in California. So it's good because you're already here. So the big question is, you want to go to nursing school, but you didn't know. I hate to break it to you now, but UCR does not have a nursing program. So now what do you do? Well, the good news is you do have options, and I'm going to go over a few different kinds of pathways that you can go for. So number one is you can complete your UCR degree here. You're already students here. Some of you may be even juniors and seniors, probably pretty close to finishing your degree. So that might be a good option for you is to stick with the degree you have here, get that bachelor's degree, and then do nursing school after. So that means a couple of things. That means you can continue your studies here, complete your nursing prerequisites concurrently, or maybe even after you graduate, it's up to you. And then after you graduate, apply for a couple different degree options. You can go for a second bachelor's, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's just doing another bachelor's degree, but this time in nursing. Generally speaking, when you're going for a second bachelor's degree, you don't need to do the general education requirements again, because you already did those, you have credit. It's just basically the major requirements. So there's that. There's also accelerated BSNs, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, which are a little different than a second bachelor's because these ones are now specifically accelerated. They're a little bit faster paced to get your bachelor's degree. Both of those options, again, would mean that you already have a bachelor's degree, and then you go and get that second bachelor's in nursing. It's just, if it's second bachelor's, it's just basically a regular program. If it's accelerated, it's an accelerated program, goes a little quicker, takes a little bit less time. Either one's a good option. It's just what does the school you want to apply to offer? Do they have one or both or either? The other option would be doing an entry-level master's in nursing, which is a little different. We'll go into that. Basically, an entry-level master's in nursing, or a direct entry program, you might sometimes hear them called as well, allow you to combine the education of a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in nursing in one program. Because of that, they're usually a little longer than some other nursing programs, but it depends. They usually are pretty fast paced though. They can be up to like 3+ years, maybe even a little shorter, depending on how quickly they go through. If they include summer classes or not, but suffice it to say that these are very fast paced programs where you're doing a lot You're probably taking summer classes. You're probably not going to be able to work while you're doing them. They're great because they allow you to get from point A to all the way to having a master's degree more quickly than other traditional options. But again, they might not be right for everyone because they are very fast paced. And there is somewhat of an expectation going into these programs that you are kind of prepared to go right into that higher level of nursing, usually showing that you've done some sort of prior experience in patient care, but it depends on the program. Next option would be to complete your prereqs for a nursing program, and then instead of completing your UCR degree, transferring into a nursing program. Again, I'll go back to the first thing I said. If you are already well away on your degree here at UCR, it may make more sense to just stick it out and get that bachelor's degree before you see if you get into a nursing program too. But it really depends on your individual case. But if this is right for you, then like I said, you can complete those prerequisites. Again, currently while you're a UCR student, maybe you go into a community college to take those prerequisite classes, whatever works for you. And then usually complete at least 2 years of school at UCR. So you can then qualify to do what's called an upper division transfer into a nursing program at another school. Not all schools offer each of these 3 options. Some offer some offer a lot of them. Some just have a normal nursing program. They don't even allow transfers. It really depends on the school. But for this case, the ones that do have this option, again, it's an upper division transfer. So you're basically doing 2 years, completing most of your general education coursework here, and then transferring into a nursing program to complete usually in 2 to 3 years at another school. So that's another option. Instead of completing your degree, you just transfer into that program and just do your nursing degree. Third option is to do an immediate transfer. This may not make sense for everyone. This is going to make more sense for like first year students probably, but this would be just leaving UCR and trying to go directly into a traditional nursing pathway at another school. Again, that might not make sense for everyone, and there's some risk with that. Is you need to apply to another school and hopefully get in, and then get into their nursing program, which is difficult at a lot of places, being very impacted programs. And you'd be leaving your degree option here at UCR. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that is another option that would be, again, the traditional Bachelor of Science in Nursing sort of pathway. So those are kind of the 3 choices, I guess, you probably have. There's different degree options within them, but it's basically, do you want to complete your degree here at UCR? Do you want to transfer, or do you just want to go straight into the program? So let's break down the different types of nursing programs a little bit more. I already showed you a couple of them, but let's go a little bit more in depth. So first one we have would be an associate's degree in nursing. So to be an RN in California, you can do so with an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Now, one thing to note is that more and more places are preferring that incoming nurses with RN licensures have a bachelor's degree. You're basically going to get better job options, better pay. So most of the places, and I myself too, would recommend getting a bachelor's degree. However, we'll see a little later that going for an associate's degree first could actually be a really good option. Nice thing about an associate's degree program is they're usually a little shorter than some of these other options. We're talking usually 2 years long. Primarily, you're going to find these programs at community colleges. But these could be a good option because you can get that associate's degree, take the licensure exam, start working as a nurse, and then we'll see a little later, you can actually continue your education and get that bachelor's degree later in a pretty easy program. Well, I don't know about easy, but short length program. Let's go with that. So that is one option to consider. Community colleges, usually the average GPAs and test scores to get admitted into one of these programs are a little lower than some of the bachelor's programs. They're still very, very competitive, which is something to note, but sometimes if you have a lower end of the GPA spectrum, you might have a better chance of getting into an associate's degree program first and then going for that continuation program to get your bachelor's degree. So it's an option to consider. Next one would be a bachelor's degree in nursing. So this would include those traditional programs, accelerated bachelor's programs, second bachelor's, or upper division transfer programs. Those are kind of generally all the different kinds of bachelor's in nursing programs. These are usually about 2 to 3 years long, depending on the program. You'll find these at a lot of 4-year institutions, the Cal States. There are a few UCs, I believe, not UCR, unfortunately, again. And there are a couple private 4-year universities as well that offer these nursing programs. And again, that's kind of like the standard option that a lot of people try to go for is the bachelor's degree. Again, that's more preferred nowadays for RNs. But these programs are very, very competitive. And generally speaking, the less cost of attendance are usually the more competitive ones. So a lot of the Cal State programs, being the cheaper tuition, also wind up being very, very competitive for that reason. And not to say at all that they're not as high quality programs, they're actually really great too. Nursing programs are very regulated in California, so they kind of have to be very good programs. But yeah, so that's another option as well. But then I also mentioned earlier the entry-level masters in nursing. These programs can be about 3 years long, maybe a little shorter. It really depends on the program and the pace that they set for it. But again, this combines the entry-level nursing education that you get in a bachelor's with also that education of the master's degree. So you can start basically as an advanced practice nurse. And this is usually offered at a lot of four-year institutions. The last thing is bridge programs. So when I was talking earlier about getting an associate's degree and then furthering your education to get that bachelor's, that's where the bridge programs come into play. So these can include RN to BSN programs, ADN to BSN programs, and a couple other ones that are like that. But these are basically completer programs, so they allow you to further your education with usually a year-long program. So you could do 2 years to get your associate's degree, and then another year bridge program, which is usually an RN to BSN program is what they're called. And that allows you to basically get that bachelor's level of education at an RN. So this can be a good idea. The interesting thing is pretty much all these programs before that I listed are usually impacted, but a lot of the bridge programs are not impacted. So if you can get that associate's degree, usually getting into a bridge program is a little easier than it would be to get into some of these other options that we've talked about. So I just want to put that out there that it could be a good idea. Ultimately, 2 years of a nursing program for associates plus 1 year of a bridge program, broken up a little differently, and you have to apply to 2 different schools likely, but it technically would take as long as a lot of bachelor's programs, being about 3 years long. And the cool thing with that option too is you could work as an RN with an associate's degree for a while and then do the bachelor's completion program when it feels right for you. So that's one of the nice things about nursing is you kind of got a lot of different options in terms of getting to where you want to be as an RN. And then even beyond that, we won't even go into normal master's programs or DNP programs. Despite that there's a lot of room to grow and to do different specializations within nursing. So the cool career in that regard. So those are kind of the types of nursing programs, but in terms of actually finding these programs, we want to show you a couple of good resources. So first one is going to be the California Board of Registered Nursing. They kind of are what they sound. They are actually the entity that does the licensures for nurses in California. Their website's really great. They've got a lot of good information. They also have on there, what I'll show you real quick, is a list of programs that are licensed in California that you can go to. And the other one is the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, which is another good resources. You can find a lot of info about nursing programs on there as well. But I wanted to show you real quick what their website looks like. So let me share this screen now. Oops. Let me just stop sharing real quick. Then share that screen. So this is what their website looks like. The thing that I wanted to show you is going to be a list of RN programs. So if you scroll down here under like quick links section, that's the easiest way to get to it. They have a list here of pre-licensure RN programs. Pre-licensure would be a program that allows you to take the NCLEX and become a registered nurse. So pre-licensure basically means anything with associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or entry-level degree as well. And you can see they actually list them by those different distinctions. So scroll down here, you'll see these are all the associate's degree programs that are accredited in California. You'll see below that the bachelor's degree, and then if you scroll down even further, you'll see the entry-level master's degrees. So this is just a good directory if you're doing your search. These are all accredited programs. So you can click on the links to go to their actual school's website to learn more about the program as well. But I just wanted to show you that in case you need some help finding these nursing programs that you can apply to. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, and then beyond that, if you need help looking for nursing programs or kind of deciphering all this, please feel free to come to our offices. You can meet with me or other advisors that we have here as well, and we can help you out with this whole process. Okay. There we go. So general admissions requirements for these different kinds of programs. they're all going to have prerequisite courses that are required. For the most part, they're very similar. The only ones where you're going to find kind of variation within prerequisites are going to be private four-year schools will sometimes have some additional requirements that some of the public ones don't have. And then entry-level master's in nursing programs, those ones can have slightly different ones. When we're talking about associate's degree or bachelor's degree programs, they're going to have very similar prerequisite courses, and we'll go over those in a sec. Your overall GPA and or your prerequisite GPA, meaning the GPA specifically within those prerequisite courses that you have, those are usually the two academic metrics that they're going to consider for entry to these programs. Basically, having a higher GPA in both is really going to benefit you for your chance of getting into a program. They do look pretty specifically at your prerequisite GPA at a lot of schools too. So really doing well in the prerequisite courses for nursing programs is going to help a lot too. The other thing I mentioned again was the TEAS exam. Your score on that will definitely be a big part of your consideration in these programs. Residency requirements are pretty common because a lot of these, basically all the nursing programs in California are impacted. A lot of them will have a residency requirement, meaning that you need to be a resident of California to be admitted to their program. So if you aren't a resident of California, it may be pretty difficult for you to get into a program here until you can establish residency, or it might be better just to go out of state for your nursing degree. Letters of recommendation and personal statements, this usually is only going to apply to entry-level master's programs. Most associate's degree programs and bachelor's degrees programs that I've seen don't usually have a letter of recommendation or even a personal statement requirement. In fact, a lot of these bachelor's programs specifically, what they really look at is just your GPA and your TEAS test score, and maybe a couple other little factors, but that's basically it. Like a lot of times your activities that you've done prior experience as a nurse doesn't usually even get considered for a lot of bachelor's programs. For the associate's degree programs, I see that a little bit more commonly, but for a lot of bachelor's programs, they're really just looking at your GPA and your TEAS test score. So again, very important to do well on those. So the prerequisites, we'll break that down a little bit more. Again, generally speaking, these are the prerequisites you're going to see. They will vary slightly from school to school, so make sure you're finding these programs, going to their websites, and looking specifically on their admissions page for the prerequisites, exactly what they require. But generally speaking, what you're going to see is science prerequisites and non-science prerequisites. So for science, you'll usually have a chemistry requirement. This one can be slightly different from school to school. I've seen that some that just say take a general chemistry class, and some that say take a chemistry class that does a survey of general, organic, and biochemistry. So again, that will vary from school to school, but for the most part, if you do a single chemistry class that includes general, organic, and biochem, you're probably going to be good. And if you're a bio major or a lot of CNAS majors where you have to take Gen Chem series, OChem series, and biochem anyways, well, congratulations, you went above and beyond, because usually they just want one course, but you've probably done, 6 or 9 of these classes. So you may have overdone your chemistry requirement, but they'll generally accept that too. From what I've seen, we don't have a single course at UCR that includes all those topics in one Gen Chem course. So unless you're going to complete your degree here in CNAS and already do those chemistry classes anyways, it might be better to actually look at taking that class at another school, because you can probably just take one course and satisfy the needs instead of taking a lot of them. Microbiology, you could potentially cover that with Bio 121 at UCR. But I believe that is an upper division technically microbiome class for bio majors. You could probably take that one, but again, it may actually wind up being better to take this at another school as a lower division microbiome class that's usually more suited for nursing and allied health majors. So you could cover this at UCR, but again, it might be better to take at another institution just for the sake of efficiency. The one that you'll definitely need to take at another school will be anatomy and physiology, however. We don't offer a 2-part sequenced human anatomy and physiology course at UCR. We have some other ones, but they're not what nursing programs are looking for. What they're going to want is going to be, again, a sequenced 2-part class. So it's usually going to be anatomy physiology part 1, anatomy physiology part 2. And they'll usually have lab classes associated with them. Really, for all these science ones, they're going to have labs required as well. So anatomy and physiology, again, if you're going to take those ones, it's best to take at another school because we don't have that at UCR. You can look at community colleges if they're near you and enroll for those classes. You can also look for four-year universities if they have an extension or like open university program where you can take individual classes. You could look at doing that. But regardless, you'll definitely want to try to meet with us, but specifically also your academic advisor for your major. For what I've gathered is different colleges might have different regulations in terms of like how they approve doing cross enrollment. I know CNAS does that, so you'll definitely want to talk with your academic advisor for that approval. Generally speaking, it gets approved because it's a class that we don't offer here, so if you need it, they usually like to take it, but you definitely want to talk to your academic advisor. Yeah, go ahead.
So these are like the main prerequisites the nursing programs require for like to get into.
Exactly. So these are the prereq classes that you have to do to be able to apply and get into a program. So again, speak with your academic advisor about figuring out how to fit these into your schedule. That you can meet with us or them to help figure out how to take these classes at another school if you want to do cross enrollment. And you really have two options. You can try and take this concurrently, meaning taking it while you're also taking classes at UCR. Or if you do it over the summer, you can just take it over the summer somewhere. So you got options for that. And again, we can help you out with that. Actually, the next slide, I go a little bit into figuring out how to take these classes. So those are the science ones. The non-science courses, usually you'll see statistics as a requirement. At least Stat 10 or Psych 11 both would count. As long as it's a statistics course, most nursing programs I've seen will accept it, even if it's business stats or psych stats or regular math stats. They usually just don't care. They just want you to take a stats course. Oral communication, which you can cover with public speaking course here. English composition. I've seen that they'll basically give credit for either 1B or 1C, I think is what they articulate to a lot of these nursing programs, is covering that English composition component. And then lastly, you need to take a critical thinking class as well. Philosophy 7 and 8, from what I've seen, both satisfy that requirement for a lot of nursing programs. These are basically a lot of what's known as a lot of universities as the Golden Four. These are some like general education type stuff. But basically all nursing programs require those 4 non-science classes. So you will want to take basically all of these. Again, might have to go a little bit above and beyond for certain institutions if they have additional course requirements, but these 8 are pretty much across the board at every nursing program for requirements wise. Last thing that I actually didn't put on here, but I should have, is most nursing programs also require you, actually all of them require you to have taken a developmental psychology class. It is weird though, because it's not always a prerequisite for a lot of nursing programs. It's a little weird. They actually expect you to have it done usually before you enter a program, but it's not often considered a prereq for admissions. It's just one that you need to do before you start the nursing program. So do keep in mind that you may need to take a developmental psychology class, and you may need to take a general psychology class as a prereq for some other universities as well. So just know you might need some psych.
Do we have that at UCR?
Do you know, Kevin?
I'm
You
taking
have to, right?
like to.
We do human development, and we have one in psychology and one in education. So one is called human development and the other one is called lifespan.
And you'll see that pretty commonly as like on different nursing websites, but I've seen, developmental psychology, human development, lifespan development. I've seen it called all those things. It's usually the same sort of class though.
It's usually, they just want, we call it like birth to death or cradle to grave. They want the whole
I'm in
entire.
Psych 2. I'm in Psych 2, and my professor calls it like womb to tomb.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cute. I love that.
That's what they want. Yep.
So finding course equivalencies. So as I was talking about taking these classes at another institution, it's sometimes useful to figure out at another school what exactly that class is, like what we offer here. So it's always good to make sure that you are referring to specific admissions requirements for the universities to which you're applying. So they may have some weird little caveats about these classes. It's good to check that. Check the university's website for like what courses they offer. If you're looking at a community college, usually you want to look for their catalog. That's the way you can see what courses they offer. If you're looking for anatomy and physiology, it's usually listed under the bio department. Some community colleges I've seen actually have like a separate anatomy and physiology like department. So you might see it under there too. But if you're looking for like equivalent courses between public schools, You'll want to use assist.org. That's a website for finding transferable credits between California and public universities. So if you're trying to apply to a nursing program, say you want to go to Cal State San Marcos's nursing program, you can actually look up on that website what their requirements are, and then you could look at, say, like a community college you want to go to take anatomy physiology, and you'll see like if those courses match up between the two schools. So it could be a useful tool for you to use. And then lastly, many schools will have admission staff that may be available to help you with getting this course credit evaluated. If you want to know, like, hey, is my chem that I took, does it meet your chem requirement? They can be pretty helpful sometimes too. And then again, also feel free to come meet with me if you want to have a little help finding what courses to take. It'd be weird sometimes. So I have something to chat. I'll check that. Psych 11 counts as a stats course. I believe so. Let me double check. I think I had that one. Yeah, Psych 11 from what I've seen is a stats course that should count for that. Yeah. GPA requirements. So again, these are very competitive programs. So having a high GPA is really important. GPA requirements will vary from school to school that you're applying to. I usually see it as a pretty high minimum requirement. The lowest I usually see is like a 3.0 for like their minimum. Some will even have higher. I've seen some schools have like a 3.5 as their minimum to apply. And really, realistically, having even above that is what's going to get you into a program. Again, a lot of these schools are very, very impacted, especially like the Cal States. I mean, we're talking more like 3.6, 3.7 to have a good shot at getting in for a lot of these schools. It'll depend on the school. Some are a little lower. Like I said, like the associate's degree ones are usually a little bit lower for the average GPA going in. Some other ones that aren't like the Cal State ones can usually be a little lower too, but it's basically you're looking for definitely the 3.5 around that range, hopefully higher if you want to have a good shot getting into these programs. They are very competitive, so just meeting the minimum requirement usually is not going to cut it for these places. Some schools may have like an overall cumulative GPA requirement and then also a prerequisite GPA requirement. So just for those like 8 prereqs that we showed earlier, sometimes they'll look specifically at what was your GPA for just those 8 classes. They might have an additional GPA minimum requirement for those too. Be aware of that. And some schools may only accept the first attempt of a class when you're calculating your GPA. So if you take anatomy physiology part 1 and you get a D on it, and then you go back and take it and you get an A, they may still use that D as the GPA calculation. Depends on the school, not all schools do that, but you definitely want to check that before you apply to a school. And then the TEAS exam. So I mentioned that earlier in the presentation. The TEAS exam is the most used admissions test when we're talking about nursing programs. You can find information on atitesting.com. ATI is the company that administers the TEAS exam. It's a multiple choice format style exam. It does a reading section, math, science, and then an English and language usage section. The science section is basically going over a lot of what you're covering in those science prerequisites. So chemistry, anatomy, physiology, microbiology, a lot of that is what's actually on the test. If you go to the website here for the TEAS test, they'll actually give you a breakdown of like what kinds of questions they are, what subjects are covered and everything. So it's a good resource to find. You'll also register for the exam there. You'll want to register early, but it is offered from what I've seen pretty much year round at a lot of different testing locations. So you got options to take it, but do make sure you register early because as we get close to like the normal like admissions time and application time, those seats will fill up. So you want to make sure you're registering early. It's scored out of 100%. So if you see on a nursing admissions website that it says we want like a minimum of a 70, they mean a 70%. That's just how it's scored. It's a lot more straightforward than something like the MCAT. It's just this weird number than 500s for some reason. Some schools will have that minimum score requirement. Again, it's very similar to the GPA requirement, but just getting that minimum score is not going to cut it. You want to shoot for usually higher than that minimum. You want to have a good shot getting in. Some schools will have policies that they'll say we will let you take it twice, and that's the most times we'll let you take. Some will say take it as many times as you want. Some might say we'll only accept your first attempt. Really depends on the school. Again, another good thing to look into when you're researching what programs you want to apply to. Other requirements you might see as well, again, residency requirements, but beyond just the residency requirement for being a California residents. Some schools may also have a like local area requirement. For example, I do know Cal State San Bernardino has had one for a long time. I believe they still do, where they basically say like, if you want a good shot at getting in, you will need to be a resident of the San Bernardino County or I think Riverside counties as well. We'll definitely want to double check because I may be outdated on that, but that's something to look out for. Is some schools might have that. They might say like, hey, we're really here to serve our local area, so we really prefer students that are from the local area. So do look out for that. Some might have some sort of volunteer experience. Again, they might have additional class requirements. I've seen like medical terminology or like nutrition sometimes, especially at the private schools, as additional prerequisite classes. Again, led as a recommendation, usually this is going to be more for those entry-level master's programs, so we will have that requirement. And there may also be a language proficiency requirement as well. But that's pretty much all the additional sort of requirements you might see. Take out one more chat. For the recording, it will be put on our YouTube page, as basically all our other workshops that we've done have also been put on. So if you go to our website, that's a good way to get to our YouTube page too. We have a pretty great list of different workshops that we've done in the past, and when we record them, we put them up on there so you can watch them later. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so then actual applications. So a lot of times if you're looking at doing a transfer program, usually you'll need to apply to the school itself first and then to the nursing program. A lot of schools have that two-step process where you have to be admitted to the university you're trying to go to and then admitted to their nursing program. So just be aware of that. It might be two applications. A lot of schools do their own application for nursing, but there are some that use what's called Nursing Pass, which is the Nursing Central Application Service. I feel like I see this more for the entry-level master's programs. Again, most of the bachelor's programs and associate degree programs I've seen just have their own application on their website. But if you do hear Nursing Pass, just know that's what that is. It's a central application service that different schools will all utilize. And then also make sure to check deadlines for different admission cycles. Some schools will do just a fall admissions, some will do a spring admissions. Be sure that you're looking at what the deadline is for the application, and make sure you do get it in early. And then lastly, I wanted to look at some example students, some fake ones that I made up, just to kind of illustrate the points of what might be good pathways for different scenarios. We'll have some time after this too for questions at the end, by the way. So let's see if we can use what we learned today to figure out what might be the best case for some of these students. So first up, we have Malone. So they are a sophomore biochem major. They have a 3.16 cumulative GPA and a 2.7 prerequisite GPA. They still need to take anatomy and physiology as well as microbiology. They haven't done the TEAS test exam yet. They want to be a travel nurse, and they're originally from out of state. So for this kind of person, let's see if anyone actually wants to try this one. What do you think might be a good pathway for this? Yeah, go.
Maybe going back out of state or trying to get residency from back in California. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're originally from the out of state, then they might not be eligible for certain nursing programs. It depends on if they're able to establish residency in California, or if they basically are just here and like they really like they're registered like in another state. So it could make more sense for them to go out of state, especially because they also want to be a travel nurse. So if they want to be a travel nurse, well, that actually doesn't matter so much where you get your licensure in as much. So you can, because the point of travel nurse is that they're able to go from state to state as there's a need. So they might not necessarily even need to be registered in California. If they wanted to just practice in California, then yeah, they definitely want to be licensed in the state. But if they don't, then they could look at out of state. And that could be an option for you all as well, even if you are a California resident. But unfortunately, California is really, really impacted. And some states have a little bit less impacted programs. So it could be actually a shorter wait time to get into one of those programs than to one for ones here. You know, it really depends on how competitive you are as well. But yeah, so I put for this, they would certainly want to finish their prerequisites, probably at a community college, seeing that they need that anatomy, physiology, and microbiome. They want to focus on improving their GPA. A 3.6 cumulative is a little lower than a lot of programs will have for their average GPA, so they want to make sure that they're really focusing on doing well in their classes, specifically the anatomy, physiology, and microbiome. They'll need to take the TEAS test, so they want to do that. They could potentially apply to an associate's degree program and then do that completer program to get their bachelor's later if they want to. Or they could look at applying to out-of-state schools as well. That is not the only option for the student. That's just one potential thing I might say, like, hey, that's a good option for your scenario if you kind of fit that sort of profile. Next would be Ariana Pequena, who is a junior psych major, has a 3.78 cumulative GPA and a 3.67 prereq GPA. They still need all their science prerequisites. They got an 84% on the TEAS exam. They want to be a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner ultimately, and they have actually 2 years of experience as a CNA, which is a certified nursing assistant. What do we think for this student? What might be a good option? Anyone?
Taking the science prereqs or working on that. Probably finishing them.
Yeah, so definitely needing to do the science prerequisites, and they're already a junior, and the thing is, they want to go into psychiatric mental health nursing. And they're a psych major. It may make a lot of sense for them to want to complete that psych degree, because that could be very helpful for their career that they're going into. So they could potentially finish their prereqs at community college or the ones that they need at UCR as well. They could finish their degree at UCR and then apply for an entry-level master's program if they want to with their specialty, because they kind of already have a specialty they want to go into and they have prior nursing experience. So an entry-level master's program would actually make a lot of sense for them because they could go straight into what they want to do and utilize what they've already done with their degree and with their prior nursing experience. So in that case, that could make a lot of sense for them. They could also look at doing a bachelor's program. They still have a lot of options open, but that might be a good choice for them in this case. Lastly, we'll look at Good Bunny, who is a sophomore bio major, 3.52 cumulative and a 3.23 prerequisite GPA. They still need the anatomy and physiology and the chem classes, and then they've got a 92% on their TEAS exam. They want to be a public health nurse, and they are bilingual, which I don't think I mentioned before, but that can usually give you a plus on nursing applications that a lot of schools right here in California. If you are bilingual, sometimes they'll give you a little bit of extra points on your application, so that's good. For them, they want to finish their prereqs at a community college, most likely, seeing that they still need the anatomy, physiology, and chem. They want to take the TEAS exam, or sorry, they already took the TEAS exam, so they're good on that. They got a great score. They want to do probably an upper division transfer, if that makes sense for them, and they have the time basically to do that within the admission cycle, because we're talking this is like spring quarter of their sophomore year. Well, it's too late for fall admissions for most places for their application to start fall of their junior year. So it depends on where we're at in the year, but if it's still enough time for them to meet the deadline for applications, they could potentially look at starting their next year as a transfer student into a nursing program. Or they could also finish their degree at UCR and then do an accelerated program for bachelor's in nursing, a second bachelor's. Again, they have a lot of options, so that's just one potential path that they can do. So, any questions on specifically this, and then I'll move on to any other general questions. Also have some